Hey, y'all need a break. Listen to these stories from r/AmITheA-hole. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she's the reason I'll never adopt? I, 30 female, have 3 bio siblings, 37 male, 36 male, 33 female, and a sister, 31 female. My sister, who I will call Becky, bio mom is my mom's cousin. The story of Becky getting adopted by my parents was basically, her bio parents were addicts that just came one day out of the blue for a visit, then abandoned her at my house. She was 5 weeks old. For a few weeks, they tried to get my cousin's family to take her, but those a-holes didn't want the shame of a baby with medical issues that was born out of wedlock. My parents fell in love with Becky and the rest was history. Thankfully, all Becky really needed was love and a good home. She beat a lot of odds and leads a healthy, successful life. My parents never hid the fact Becky was adopted. She's biracial, and we all learned about her heritage growing up. Everything was perfect till her parents reached out when she was 22. They were clean and wanted a relationship. In the space of a few months she became a different person. It was like she hated us for taking her away from her bio parents. As soon as she finished college and got the 20,000 euros check my parents gifted her, it's a startup we all got. She ghosted us and sent a letter to my parents telling them if they ever tried to contact her again, she'll file a restraining order. She got married and none of us even knew. Her mother passed away when she was 26, which led her father to relapse, then unfortunately died 8 months later. After Becky reached out, my parents welcomed her back with open arms, but I still can't. Which leads to now, me and my husband recently had a baby via IVF after 6 years trying, 5 natural. I brought my son to meet the family tonight and after dinner, the girls of us were in the living room. I thought up how he was worth everything, explaining my struggles, and that I'm gonna start naturally trying soon so he will have a sibling. Becky made a comment about why we didn't look into adoption since the world was already overpopulated. I told her, honestly, we thought about it, but after all the crap you pulled, I'm afraid you're the reason I will never adopt. Becky yelled at me to get over it already, then left, and my mother said I shouldn't have spoke to her like that, so in the end I ended up leaving early too. My siblings are on my side but my parents are extremely mad. Also, I'd like to point out English isn't my first language and I'm on mobile. Becky was abandoned by her birth parents and then abandoned by the rest of their family who didn't want to take on a child with health needs. That type of thing can create huge issues and a disordered attachment style, basically, insecurity over whether people really love her. I'm involved in foster care, and this type of thing is very normal. Becky perhaps felt that she almost needed to abandon her adoptive family in order to prove that her bio family really did love her. A bit twisted, but I'm sure her emotions at the time were very, very intense. This is why, in foster care, even when it is very messy and complicated, we usually try to make sure children have contact with bio family, so they don't develop some fantasy of what their real family is like and run off to them the first chance they get. Did Becky act fantastically? No, she didn't. But, being the only adopted child in your family and biracial too must not have been very easy. I'm sure she felt quite different a lot of the time. She asked why you wouldn't adopt and she got her answer. I'd leave it there. Am I the a-hole for getting mad at my wife whenever she talks descendingly about our son's work? I never used this platform, so sorry if I get anything wrong. Also, while my English is pretty good, it's not my first language. Edit. I have been informed that the word I mean was condescendingly, not descendingly. Thank you. So basically, my son is a professional aerial performer and is currently performing in this large and popular horror-themed circus where we live. I know I may be biased, but in my opinion, he's really good and it's just amazing to watch him perform. Maybe a little scary sometimes, and I sometimes worry about him with some of the tricks and acts he does. My wife, however, will just tell people he works in the circus, never mentioning that he's an aerial performer, that he actually works independently and is basically a contractor. I don't know if there are any proper terms, but this is the best way I can describe it, that he works with a very large and popular circus. Just that he works in the circus. Whenever we are out and she sees a clown, she will point at it and say, "Look, it's son's name." And it is very clear she looks down on him for what he does. She assumes he makes next to nothing and is poor. I know he is. He doesn't make a crazy amount, but he makes enough to support himself well. This all came to a head when we were with some of her friends and one of them asked if our son could entertain her kids at a birthday party, promising to pay him generously since he must be struggling. My wife laughed and responded with, "I'll see if he's free." I butted in saying, he probably won't be able to since the birthday falls on a day when popular circus, which is where he works as a headline aerial act in, is fully booked because it's so close to the new year. Almost everyone there was shocked since all this info was new to them. My wife looked pissed and left. She sat in the car and texted me that she wants to leave. I stayed for about 20 minutes answering questions and showing them some videos. The woman who asked apologized, saying she was given the impression by my wife that our son was a struggling and failing cheap circus performer and wanted to help him. When I finally left and got in the car, my wife yelled at me, saying that I made her look like an idiot and horrible mother in front of her friends. When we got home, she stormed out the car and locked herself in our bedroom crying loudly. She's been like this for almost an hour now, and I'm starting to feel awful and like an a-hole. I could have just left it alone, so am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your wife is really out of order. Seems like she has a big problem with her son not conforming to her standards of success, but her shaming and belittling him to others is disgusting. Aerial performers are amazing. It's a shame she is not proud of his skills or success. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my parents move in and reminding them that they backed the wrong horse? My 37 male family comes from and is a long line of doctors. Being a doctor is the only acceptable profession in their eyes, and anything aside from that is met with literal abandonment. Which is what happened to me when I turned 17 and told my family I was not going to be a doctor but to build an acting career/social media career. YouTube wasn't huge then, and supplement my income with small business endeavors. When I told my family this, they kicked me out and we subsequently lost contact for 17 years. During time they moved to the UK and my sister became a doctor and my older brother got into a very competitive stream for surgery, neurosurgery specializing in spinal tumor diagnosis and removal, which he has now finished. We reconnected when COVID hit and they told me they were moving back to Sydney for lifestyle reasons and because my brother has found a $750,000 a year job. During the last 2 years they never asked me how my acting career/social media stuff went, and basically assumed I was just slumming in Sydney. To their credit, they were correct in that I didn't make it big in acting. Maybe the world wasn't ready for a mainstream leading role Indian, or make it at all. I did, however, make it big, as an investment banker and recently made partner at the bank I work. This came to head on Friday when I met them for house shopping. I walked to meet them, and when they asked about my car, I just said I preferred to walk, and they realized the areas they wanted to live despite being highly paid medical professionals simply wasn't going to be happening, as the houses cost north of $20 million. When we decided to call it a day and regroup, they suggested going to my place before going out to dinner. When we arrived at my house, they thought I was renting a room and inquired how much rent was. I informed them that I wasn't renting and that this was my house. They lost their crap, accusing me of lying to them for years and only meeting up to rub their face in my, probably illegally gained, wealth, and capped it off by informing me that they'll be living with me now instead of with my oldest brother, since they can't be seen living in a worse house than their son. I laughed at them and reminded them that they bet on my brother and sister, not me, and that they have a better chance of living with my neighbors than me. At that point they threatened to cut me out of their will, to which I reminded them of the fact that they can't even afford to buy in my area, so their will and assets don't really matter to me. Now they aren't talking to me, and my brother and sister are saying I should have been proactive in letting them know of my success. I have a public LinkedIn profile, so they literally never Googled me. Edit. Getting a lot of hate about including the term social media influencer in my post. To clarify, this was 19 years ago, and I believe social media influencer is probably the updated term for socialite. I wanted to be famous, but I had no real skills or plan to how I was going to achieve that goal, like most social media people. Edit 2. A lot of people are critical that my family just kicked me out or that it's unlikely a parent would do this. Obviously I wasn't a great child in their eyes in general, and this was the final straw, so to speak. Also, desi parents are a different level of parents, from washing your father's feet, to not speaking unless spoken to, not allowed to talk to opposite sex, and viewing the head of house as an almost god figure. It's a bit different. Desi parents are also incredibly strict, not like your room needs to be clean strict, but like clean the entire house, wash the cars, wash iron everyone's clothes or you are getting beaten with a broom. For the people talking about house prices, yeah, Sydney is whack. House prices jump around a bit too, of course, but generally speaking, if you live in a house on the harbor, it wasn't cheap. Our former Prime Minister lived in a $70 to $90 million house at Point Piper. Not the a-hole. Sorry that they are not interested in you as a person but only as a status symbol. Very sad. Congratulations on your great career though. Not even me, they did suggest that I move out and let my brother, his children, and them live in my house. It was amusing to say the least. Am I the a-hole for supporting my ex-husband to sue my current husband for using my son's emergency fund money for his golfing trip? My female 35, son, 13, passed away from cancer 3 months ago. It was so devastating to me and his dad, my ex-husband. And grief has been tense in those months. We were left with an emergency fund my ex-husband and I saved for our son, and recently I discovered that my current husband, male 34, used it to go on a golfing trip in another country that he just returned from. I found out via checking financial records and I blew up at him and asked why he used my son's money to go on a trip while I was grieving. He said he needed support too and to lift some weight off his chest after I kept pushing him to side and ignoring him, but I was and still am grieving and needed space. He wasn't the one who lost a child. Despite him being the step-parent, my husband made it clear he never felt any connection to my son, basically blaming his medical condition for not having a chance to bond. We had a huge argument and my ex-husband heard and was so mad. He confronted my husband, calling him an unhinged opportunist and said he was going to sue him for taking the money after accessing it through me. I told my ex-husband to go ahead and sue, and my husband was shocked that I agreed and condoned this mistreatment from my ex-husband towards him. He asked me to tell my ex to step down but I said no. He lashed out saying he too was and is grieving, and that my ex and I are ganging up on him with complete disregard for his overwhelming grief and sorrow. We haven't spoken since that argument and things keep getting worse with him texting about how I should stand with him as my husband instead of encouraging my ex to take his anger out on him like that. OP needs 2 lawyers, one for the theft and one for the divorce. Not the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for asking my neighbor to move her craft room to a different bedroom? My husband and I live in an upstairs 3-bedroom flat and the flat below us is the same layout. The house has been for sale for a while and recently a woman bought it. It turns out she doesn't have any children, so I found it strange she bought a 3-bedroom house, but I soon found out it's because she runs a craft business from home and needs 2 bedrooms to run it. The problem is, unfortunately she has decided to use the main bedroom, which is below us, as her main craft room. At first it was fine as she hadn't fully moved in, but now it's driving me crazy. She's in that room almost all day and I can hear her walking about and the faint noise of machines. I don't spend long in my bedroom during the day, but when I do go in, it just annoys me knowing she's there constantly. Like, why can't she have picked the smaller bedroom since she knows the kids are at school all day? She always stops using her embroidery and sewing machines by 7 p.m., but she's told me she can sit up until 10 p.m. some nights finishing off orders, which plays on my mind. I go to bed at 9 p.m. and I can't sleep for hours as I lie there listening for her every move. Just knowing she's awake and walking about drives me crazy, as I find it so selfish someone would buy a flat and work from home. My husband says he can barely hear a thing during the day and I need to calm down. He also doesn't see the big deal about her using her house as she pleases. Yesterday I finally had enough and went to her door. I told her how I was feeling about everything and how I can hear the faint noise of her machines. She apologized and invited me inside to show me her setup. All her machines are on some sort of anti-vibration padding to stop as much noise as possible, so she claims the noise should be minimal and that you need to expect some noise from neighbors. I told her I don't make any noise, and that's when things took a turn, as she said she can hear my kids running around and jumping off furniture all evening, but she would never dream of complaining, because it's just one of those things when you share a building with other people. I left before I said anything else I regretted and I thought that was the end of it, but today my husband came home from working overnight and asked if I had said anything to the woman downstairs, as she was very cold and blunt with him when he said hello. I told him what happened and he said I'm a massive a-hole. I've spoken to a couple of my friends who think I've handled this completely wrong and I'm a bit of an a-hole for it, but I don't see what else I could have done. I find it so selfish that someone would buy a flat and work from home. What? You're a massive a-hole. She can do whatever she wants in her own home. Or would you rather she sat there in silence on the dole? Edit, you're the a-hole, because apparently my judgment isn't clear. Can we also acknowledge that OP doesn't even like the idea that their neighbor is awake and using their flat? I'm sorry, what? OP, if you have issues with the mere thought of people living in the space they pay for, maybe you should save up for a single-family home so that you aren't disturbed by people being alive around you. Am I the a-hole for ruining Thanksgiving? Update. I, 30 female, met my boyfriend, 30 male, 3 years ago. Before me, he was together with his high school sweetheart. They fell out of love and broke up. A year later we started dating. His mom, however, was still heartbroken about it. I was very understanding and thought she needed time to get to know me. The ex basically grew up with them and they saw her as a part of the family. For the first year of my relationship, his mom would call me ex's name, until boyfriend got angry once and told her to be nice. She laughed it off and said it was just a habit. After that, she started calling me the wrong name. Janet instead of Jenny, fictional names just for the story. I corrected her a couple of times, but she seemed to like hurting me, so I ignored it later. My boyfriend has 2 sisters and a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving we were invited to barbecue at the older sister's house. I was in the kitchen with my boyfriend's mom, the sisters, and one of their husbands. The older sister then talked about how my boyfriend praised my cooking to her husband and the mom was listening. She then said out loud, "Sure. Why don't we let Janet make the turkey this year?" The sisters giggled and looked at each other and I said, "That's a great idea." I didn't tell my boyfriend what happened. On Thanksgiving we went to his mom's house with the usual wine and dessert. She was shocked, everybody was shocked. I said, "What? I thought Janet is bringing the turkey." There was yelling, crying, and then we got kicked out. My boyfriend is so angry with me he hasn't talked to me since. I think it's over, to be honest. But I still don't think I did anything wrong. Did I? Not the a-hole. Well, it was an a-hole move, but the correct and necessary one. Top-notch trolling. I love it. Brava. Am I the a-hole for not giving my cousin my grandmother's house after she passed? I'm a 27-year-old male and my grandmother passed recently. In her will, she left me her 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. Now, before my grandmother passed, she was in danger of losing the house because of unpaid taxes. She asked various family members for help, but none did. I was in college at the time and I had a huge student refund. She asked me for $1,500 to settle the debt. She said thank you and we never talked about it again. I didn't want my granny to be homeless after all. That was about 8 years ago. Fast forward to today and I'm now the owner of a house in the heart of Atlanta. Prime real estate, if I do say so myself. I plan on moving in at the end of the month before doing some light cleaning and renovation. Enter my cousin and her kids. She is upset with me because I got the house. She said because I don't have any kids I should give her the house, because in her eyes I got the house for free. I thought she was crazy, but a lot of our family is on her side, stating that it's hard out here for a single mother. They told me I can buy a house one day because I am an able-bodied young man. It will be harder for her because she has 2 kids. I'm like, she chose to have those kids and that isn't my problem. Everyone is calling me selfish and hell, maybe I am, but my grandmother wanted me to have the house. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. It's your house. I hate the narrative that people who don't have kids should roll over to give people with kids anything and everything they want. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments.